go. Thank you. Okay. Right, we will start because we have a lot to get through on this, and we have such a jam-packed lot of people speaking and sharing their stories, and it's a really exciting time. So we're really looking forward to this. So I'll officially start the event. My name's Trish Springsteen, and it's my honor to MC this virtual book launch for Janice today of her book, which is I'm really excited to hear about. Before I start, I would just like to do acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Some housekeeping. So I would recommend that each one of you, wherever you happen to be, check your toilets, where you need to go, and check your evacuation schedule. So if we do happen to have an issue, you can all manually and separately evacuate your rooms. Just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Be aware of, to know your own home in case of evacuation. Now, also to be aware, who here is comfortable with Zoom, has used Zoom before? Everybody? For those who are not too sure about Zoom, I'll just quickly go through. There is up on your top right-hand corner. At the moment, if you are seeing only one person speaking at a time, that is called speaker view, and you can leave it on that. If you are seeing a gallery view of all of our pictures, that's gallery view. Now, you can leave it there if you like, but if you want to switch, you go up to the right-hand corner and just hit. So if you've got gallery view, just click that, and it will come up as a speaker, and if you just click that, it'll come up as speaker, and you'll see just the one person who's speaking. Now that can be much more comfortable for you, as we do have a lot of speakers coming through, means you can just concentrate on the one person who is speaking at a time. So that's just, you can switch between them if you like. Now, at the bottom of your screen, there is a little, about the middle of the screen, a little thing that says chat with that little bubble head above it. If you click that, that opens up the chat room. Now the chat room may open on your right hand side. It might open as a white little thing. If you've got two screens like I have, I can move it over to my other screen. If you've only got one screen, it'll open on the side. If you're on your laptop, I'm not sure, but you might have some issues. The reason why I want to talk to you about the chat is that as we're going through, especially when Janice does her presentation and introduces her book, there might be some questions you want to ask. You can pop it in the chat and we will come back to those, and I will remind you of this as we go through. We're also going to be opening up the whole session at the end for people to have a chat, ask questions, and have a bit of discussion. I think they're the main things I would like you to know. Now, on the top bottom left is your mute button, which as you came in, you had to unmute. I would ask you all to mute yourselves now so that we only hear the speaker. So whatever speakers at the time, I will ask them to unmute themselves when I introduce them. And that way we don't get any extraneous noises. If you need to rush off at some stage while we're going, it'd be a good idea. You can either just go, or if you just close off your video so we only just see your picture or your name. That way it's not distracting that we're looking at some blank screen waiting for someone to pop back in again, and then you can come back in and open up your video. Do not log off the room, because then you'll have a bit of problem. You have to come all the way back in. But if you do need to duck off somewhere, you can close off that stop video and it will be less distracting. So let's get moving, because I'm excited to hear about Janice's journey from several people that have been with her on this journey and that have known where she's going. So it's my great delight, and I'm going to just read out a little bit of an intro to introduce our first speaker, who's going to be sharing her story of her time with Janice. Now that will be Angela Jonathan. Now Angela met Janice in the office environment working for the Department of Main Roads in 2005 and worked closely together in administration for the department. Angela will be sharing a side of Janice that the office only saw, and her positive outlook and how that impacted on the office. So please welcome Angela Johnson.
Hi, everybody. Hi. No, it's my pleasure to be here today and to share my thoughts and share what I experienced as I when watching Janet go through her journey. And I just come back to Transporter Main Road back in 2005 after being on maternity leave for 2 years, and that's where I met Janet, and we formed a very strong friendship. And we had a lot in common because we come from a background where we grew up travelling around Australia, and we had a similar outlook to life. And there are times that we crossed paths where we used to work in MLM, network marketing, and of course we come across to share some friends in that road as well. But however, I remember I ended up fell pregnant again, and then of course 2005, it was a couple of weeks before I went on maternity leave, and I knew that Janet had some health issues, but she only shared it with me very, very briefly, and so I didn't think anything more of it because she just let me go on my maternity leave. And then of course, baby Alex came along very quickly, so I didn't get much time to enjoy the extra weeks. And then I caught up with Janet, and she told me that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was dumbfounded and shocked and mostly sad because she didn't deserve this. And however, knowing her attitude, her inspiration, and she was a real fighter. And so, of course, I understood why she didn't tell me at the time, because she wanted me to enjoy my maternity and having my second baby, and she respects that, but it also she respects as my family as well. But however, when she came back to work, a lot had changed within Jan herself, and I've seen that she had done a lot of work on her journey in that time because she didn't have her family around her close by, and she had her own supportive network. But at the same time, she was very determined to beat this, no matter how big or small. She knew this was on her path to something new, like there was a message waiting to be discovered. So when she returned to the office, some people didn't know how to react or respond, as some may have never dealt with someone who had gone through breast cancer. It was like people just don't talk about it in the office. And as for me, I just couldn't wait to work with her again because she brought this ray of sunshine into the office, which was like an aura. And so I was very excited to have working with her again. And as time went by in the office, there was a lot of vibe in the air, but with her daily positive, enthusiastic attitude started to rub off on some colleagues. And by meaning, she just actually walk past through the office to go to your desk to say good morning, good morning, good morning. And even though some say good morning, some don't, but she still went and did it. And that rubbed on me as well because I thought the benefit of it is just it was like an icebreaker, and so of course I saw some morale changes in the department. And when she got redundant from government, I was sad, but I was excited for her because she has left a pebbles in their shoes. So every year when my son has his birthday, this is also when I remember Janet had achieved another milestone of how far she has come. So thank you, Janet. I'm pleased to be your friend and watching you on this journey, but at the same time, you're also a great friend to our family. You have been a great role model to my kids as well. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for sharing a little bit something that maybe many of us haven't been able to see, that aspect of Janice, because not all of us have known her while she was in that environment. So it's awesome to see another. We all always have so many faces and so many things that we have that sometimes we don't share more with everybody. And I love it in occasions like this when we get to get a little peek into things that they might have been doing at some stage, which helps us to understand the person in a much more whole context. So to give us another little bit of a view of Janice, please welcome our next speaker, Lisa Cobb. Hi, Lisa. Unmute yourself, Lisa. Just need to unmute, sweetie. Down the bottom left corner. I can do it for you. Hang on. I'll do it for you. Find you. It should be. If you have muted, I won't be able to. There you go.
No, I'm good now.
Good.
Good to go?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you for that.
Oh,
well, first of all...
Hang on, Lisa. I better do an introduction so that
okay.
you know where you're coming from. That would be helpful.
Okay.
That would be awesome. Okay, Lisa and Janice met over 35 years ago whilst living in Darwin. It was an instant connection and a friendship that has witnessed a lot of Janice's pain and suffering. Lisa shares her interpretation of the strength and tenacity to fight to live on that she witnessed with Janice's fight to beat this illness. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you for the intro. Well, first of all, I'd like to say it's an absolute privilege to be called a friend of Jan's. Jan has always been the glass half full, not the glass half empty. Matter of fact, she's a full glass. She has a kind of radiance about her, this aura about her that's kind of seeps into you and it just pulls you in, and she's a real gem in this world, and as gems are, they just kind of shine through. She went through so much on her own and she came through it and she won. To go through breast cancer and chemo on your own is just unthinkable, but amazing. When Jan first rang me with the diagnosis of her news of the diagnosis, we both just howled. She couldn't grasp that it was actually happening to her. She's always been someone who has this presence about her, this aura about her, and all of a sudden that was being threatened, and it rocked her to her absolute core. Chemo wasn't something Jan wanted, but as I kept telling her, it was a necessary evil for survival in her case. So Jan looked at alternative medicine, she looked at natural ways, because there was so much chemicals in chemo and her body had to absorb them, she found a way with natural remedies to combine the two measures that paved the way for her to actually have the chemo, but in her way. I used to work for a minister in the government, so I travelled between Darwin and Canberra to Parliament House for Parliament sittings every 2 weeks of every month of the year for years and years and years. And so on the weekend, before or after my travel, I'd stop off with Jan during this time. And as you do, girlfriends catch up, you go shopping. But this was a different type of shopping. We'd go shopping for headscarves because she'd lost her hair. Or we'd go shopping for makeup to hide the effects that were happening to her body or her skin at the time. So a different kind of shopping we used to do back in those days. Jan had we'd spend hours on the phone. She'd ring me at 1 in the morning when she couldn't sleep, or she'd ring me at 4 in the morning when she couldn't sleep, and she'd just cry and cry, and it was just, she needed someone to talk to, and it was a very trying time for Jan. And you know what? Look at her now. She now has another path in life that she's come through and is following. And she's using all those experiences and all those feelings as a guide to pass on to others. She's both inspirational and unbelievable at the same time, to turn around that experience into a positive learning sphere of life. Her absolute zest for life has seen her through the darkest days and shone through at the end, like rare gems do, Jan. And her craving to learn and suck in every bit of knowledge that she can is just astronomical. She's now sharing that knowledge with other people. And let me tell you, if you are one of those people lucky enough to be under Jan's tuition or part of her path or part of her journey now, you are one lucky person, because unlike school and unlike university, it will be a path of absolute fun and laughter, because that's the way Jan is. And you will come out at the end with everything you want. You will win and you will surpass all your expectations, just like she has. She's a very, very loyal friend, and she's always got your back. Always. What you see is what you get. And I like what I see, my friend, and I'm very, very proud of you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. And another little window into the personality and the strength that makes up Janice. Thank you very much for sharing, Lisa. Those are
Pleasure.
beautiful words, and obviously and completely came across heartfelt. And I absolutely have to agree, they shine a light on who Janice is. We are all the sum of our past. Everything that we do in our life and our experiences is what brings us to who we are at this particular moment. And it's never something that is in concrete, because when we wake up the next day, we are again changing who we are and again bringing those experiences. So thank you for sharing, Lisa.
Pleasure.
The next person is someone who has known Janice since 2013 in a variety of different ways. This person met Janice when Janice wanted to work out how to speak a little bit better, and had known and been at this person's workshop for about 12 months before. And then about 12 months after that, came along and said to this person, I'd like you to help me be able to express what I want to do and to be able to communicate. So this person's worked together with her on many elements, and from that time, it has been a great friendship. Started out with being Jan, has gone on to being Janice, as Janice has merged into her new person. And that person is me. So I would like to share a little bit about how I have seen Janice grow in the last 7 years. It was enormous privilege for me when at that time Jan, I'm going to say Jan because that's how we met. And that time Jan came to me and said, look, I saw you 12 months ago and I've been watching what you're doing and I want to work with you. So we started working, and it was a really great pleasure and privilege of mine to be able to take the rough diamond that was Jan at that time, who had all of these great skills. And what I think shone most for me was her passion and her belief in herself and where she wanted to go. And that was there. She just needed a little bit of guidance, and in some, just a little bit of change and some techniques and strategies so that she could be all she wanted to be, so she could step into all that she wanted to do. And that was my great pleasure, was to help and mentor and guide her. We worked through speaking, and then we were mentoring for many months on helping her to get her first book out and the next book out. And I remember at one time saying to her second book that she was doing, just do it. She was umming and ahhing about it. And I think I challenged you for do it in about, what would I say, 1 month or 3 months? 4 months. I think it was more like 3, but she took 4 months. Okay.
Let me clarify. That's 4 weeks, you said.
Oh, was it 4 weeks? I was giving you the tip. I just told you to do it. And she did. Because she had it already there. It just hadn't thought about bringing it out. And even at that time, this book that she's going to be sharing with you today was also hovering in the background. And Janice doesn't do things by halves, because she also has another book that I know that has been, actually another 2 books I know that have been hovering in the background. She lets them percolate and simmer in the back, and they slowly come to fruition when the time is right. So it's been my great pleasure to be able to just work with her, to see how this growth. I sit back and I watch from the time I first met Janice to what she's doing now. And it's a different person. I've seen her evolve. It has not been just a straight up journey. There have been ups and downs. And I think that's what I've loved most about seeing how Janice has grown, is because it's all very well to talk about people and say how great they are when they're up here. But it's when something happens and things put you back and you're down in the trough, when that happens, that's when you see the quality of the person that comes out. And that's when you see the resilience that displays. And that's what I've seen with Janice in that journey. As I said, not a straight journey. It's been up and it's been down. There are many things that has impeded or she's had to overcome in that journey. So I celebrate who she is, and I celebrate the person that she brings today to this absolutely fantastic book. Thank you so much for Janice for honouring me to be a mentor for you in these years. And it's so awesome to see when you mentor people. Do you know what the best part of that is? It's when you let them go and they fly. And you sit back and you see all the things that they do. And it doesn't matter whether what it is, but whenever they go and they fly, that is the awesome bit. And that is what I see today, is the person that is flying. Thank you, Janice. Okay. Our next speaker was a really, really special guest. And this was someone that I was going to introduce at the beginning as a really great special dignitary to attend. Unfortunately, that person had to be called away to work and could not attend. However, that person did actually record their interview, and we're going to play that in a minute. And I'll just introduce that person. This special guest is Vito DiMarchi. Vito met Janice in 2003, and they shared a caring friendship from the day they met. Vito was Janice's rock whilst facing all of these hurdles. And he's going to share a side of Janice that many would not have seen. So just bear with us while Janice shares her screen, and we'll play the video. Janice, you're muted, darling. You need to take it back.
Oh, well, I forgot to unmute myself. One moment, please.
Yes. There you go.
Afternoon, everyone. I should be here today, but I'm not. So I'm doing this on Friday night. Me and Jan have been more or less together since 2003. When she was diagnosed with the big C, she basically put herself on the ground. She was just giving up hope.
Janice, you just lost the video, sweetie.
Oh, fudge.
And fortitude.
Yeah.
And going to talk. She decided to have the operation, which changed her life forever. I was there when Jan went into the OR. And when she came out. And since then, I've seen a lot of growth in Jan in writing her first book. I believe what I achieved. And she's progressed from there. She's a very determined lady. She's very strong. At one point, Jan thought she lost her femininity because she lost the boob. As you said, the boob doesn't make the person. You are who you are, no matter what you've lost. And to me, she's still very smart and intelligent woman, beautiful and sexy. She might not like that bit, but anyway. Yeah, I basically read the book without reading the book, you know what I mean? I've gone through every proofread and all the other stuff that you get. I'm the only person here that she can sound off. But enough to say, like I said, Janice to me is on the path she chose to be when she was a child. None of the family really believed what she can achieve, or who she really is. But with this book, she's basically put bare her soul to everyone. And it's a great book. I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you for listening. Bye.
For those who may or may not know Vito, that is a major, major thing for him to do, to share his views, to share his experience, and to do it on video, which is not really into technology that much. So we should just acknowledge just how beautiful that was. That was absolutely awesome. And to have someone like that with you to help you is something that we don't all get. And we have to celebrate and acknowledge, and we do get that support from the people with us. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce the author. Janice's story is unique and varied, to say the least. The journey of breast cancer is difficult for many. However, the resilience to fight on is what Janice held on to. She's going to share her story and a little bit about how she's written the book, what was the background of it, and she's going to share some parts from the book for you. At the end, we will have an opportunity for you to ask questions. So if you want to put the questions in the chat, you can, or just write them down, because we'll open up at the end and have a time for those questions, and she's happy to answer all of them. So please, let's welcome our esteemed author to talk about her latest book.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's exciting, and I'm extremely grateful for Lisa and for Angela sharing the words that you did, along with Trish as well. Much, much appreciated. And of course, Vito, but that's another story. I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts out of the book that mean a little bit to me, because it was when the real reality hit. I did not want to voice my apprehension and state that I wasn't feeling ill, and as such did not understand what all the delay was. I was very near to that point when I cut the doctor off and asked that he tell me what their news was. Well, he certainly took my advice and gave me the news straight. He told me that based on the biopsy results and the observation of my x-ray, I had been diagnosed with breast cancer. It seemed wrong to me that those words could flow freely out of the doctor's lips when he was not inside my body. I felt fine, and I wasn't sure he knew that I felt just fine. I needed to tell him I did not feel like I had cancer at all. I walked into the hospital by myself. How many people living with cancer can do that? Something inside of me screamed denial. The doctor did not know what he was saying. How could he? He only had tests, and test results are wrong all the time, right? Maybe there was a mix-up. Somewhere in this will all be cleared up quickly. These thoughts overwhelmed me, and even though I did not voice them all, the doctor must have noticed, because he gave me some minutes to breathe and collect myself before I could even voice my first question. What do you mean I've got breast cancer? Different section of the book, which you'll read if you purchase a book. Drawing my breast to scale was a very logical and straightforward step for me. I could see that there wouldn't be much of the breast left if I choose to go through with a lumpectomy. From what I gathered from the counselling discussions, the chances of secondary breast cancer occurrence were greater if the breast were where the first lumps had appeared were still in place. Also, the chance that my lymph glands may already be infected also made the idea of getting a lumpectomy a very impractical one. So, in the light of understanding these factors that were in play in my unique situation, I chose to follow through with the full mastectomy. The decision all happened over the weekend, with only a few days before I had to break the news to the surgeon. He seemed startled that I decided to go with the full mastectomy, and I showed him the drawing that I had made over the weekend of how there wouldn't be much left breast if I decided to have a lumpectomy. There were also the fact that the actual size of the lumps was still mostly unknown and would only be known when I was undergoing the surgical procedure. The mastectomy was scheduled for the 8th of May, 2006. And by this time, the lump that was in By this time, the lump that was in stage 4 had already started to invert my nipple. That's a pretty drastic situation to get at when you start seeing your body transform because of other impacts that were out of my control. And coming to the realization of what the doctor was saying, that just took oodles and oodles of breath away from me. I didn't want to believe what I was hearing. You'll feel that as you read through the book, some of the emotions that I went through, because I've tried to be as explicit as possible to share the actual story. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. I'm totally appreciative of you giving up this time to be here. Really, really appreciate it. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to my daughter for her time and commitment to be with me for the first 2 months of my journey. I am forever grateful for that. She may have left, I'm not sure. The realization of breast cancer can consume you. This was one of the things that was one of my biggest awakenings, awareness, understanding. I ended up in the energy of the vortex of the time of spiraling, just spiraling. And like Vito got to share, I got lost in the understanding of the actual journey. I got lost in what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, what was going to be the effect of me. Will I be whole? Will I be human? Will I even be a female? Really impacted me in a very big way, because part of me was so proud of my breasts. Part of me knew that that was what was my feminine side, but I learned it wasn't the only thing. I'll move on now to chemo. There's a couple of areas I just want to cover quickly in the space of time. Facing chemo. As Lisa said, what confrontation that was for me, because I did not want to put any form of toxin into my body. I didn't want to even understand the depth of it. Was just astronomical for me. Because I wanted to know the ins and outs, why, how come, what for, what was, what the alternatives of it were going to be. There was one person in my life that took me aside and said, I think I know somebody who might be able to help you. And this person was recommended to me, being somebody that had already, what do they call it? He'd brought together a CSIRO level of chemo. So this man knew how chemo works and the depths of chemo. And I got to work with him, a nutritionist, and using natural therapies. And I was able to get from the hospital, and I'll remind you I was the first one to do this, because the hospital said, what would you want all of that information about your chemo? What would you want all of that information about what we were going to treat you with for your benefit? I said, that's for me to know and you to wonder. I got all the information and I took it to this nutritionist, and he analysed the whole lot of it. And we started a pathway of working out what was going to work with the chemo against what was going to not work with the chemo. Because there's certain things in the health regime of where Wayne came from that he said, I can't put you on that tablet or on that product because it will give a reaction or it'll have implications with the chemo. So we used a lot of counterbalancing and a lot of different ways in which I applied all of the recommendations from Wayne to follow the right tablets to use to counterbalance my health. And I think that also had a huge impact on me. I could have gone the natural way. And that was one of my preferences. But at $2,000 a shot, I didn't have that kind of money to go that pathway. And there were no guarantees. So after discussion with Wayne, I was able to sit down and make a logical decision based on all of this information that I'd follow the pathway of the medical and we'd counterbalance it with all of the natural products as best we could. One of the ways that I used to get through the chemo side, and you're going to laugh at this, but everybody knows what Pac-Man is. The Pac-Man, the little game thing. Well, the only way that I could cope to manage chemo, which was one colour was red, one colour was white, 8 batches, 4 of each, one taking 6 hours and one taking 8 hours. The only way that I managed that while sitting in the chemo chair, Pac-Man's working, Pac-Man's working, Pac-Man's working, Pac-Man's working. And that was the only way that I could see that working through my body, that he was taking out all of the old stuff, because what they put into you, you've got to pee out. And the Pac-Man was taking out all of the nasties, and they went out the back door through the right channels. And that was the only way that kept me sane, yeah, to stay focused, that I was doing the right thing. I was managing this in a way that I would be able to survive. So Pac-Man became my friend because it was gobbling up the cancers and it helped it to disappear. I'm not sure I wrote that in the book though, so that's a little special treat here. Now, I'd love to talk about the oncologist. This man, well, yes, he knew his stuff. I'll grant him that. He was supposedly one of the top oncologists at the Mater Hospital. I don't know if he's still there, but at that point in time, he was recognised as being one of the top oncologists. We had conflict from the day we met. He did not believe in alternative therapies. He did not believe there was anything they could do. All I needed to do was follow the chemo. And he actually told me I would be wasting my money. And I said, well, that's for me to decide, and I'll do what I need to do to help me preserve so that I get through this. We had a discussion where he tried to tell me that I would need somebody to be with me. And I said, well, you have a problem, mate. You have to find a chemo that doesn't give me any reactions. You have to find a chemo that's not going to give me diarrhea, not going to have me vomit, because there ain't nobody in my place to help me fix it up. And he did go back and review it, because we went in for a second time. When I say we, my daughter was with me at the time. And he came back and he said, right, we'll have to give you anti-nausea tablets before the chemo, and we'll have to give you anti-diarrhea type tablets so that nothing happened. And all I can say is, thank God they worked. Because without them working, the weakness and the discomfort that you feel in your own self for the type of chemo that I was having, yeah, was pretty harrowing. Now, he also was a very patronising doctor, because I ended up in so many tears that Vito started coming to the chemo meetings that we had to have before the chemo went in. And the first day, you've just seen Vito beforehand, so nothing's changed with that lovely great big moustache. And the first day that we walked into the oncology surgery, and you get ushered into the room first, and then the oncologist comes bouncing, ew, you could tell he took a step back because there was a man in the room. And I introduced Vito, and Vito said, yep, go ahead, let's get on with this. And the doctor's attitude towards me changed dramatically, because his bedside manner was woeful, and I, not that I put a report in, but I did put a complaint with the nurses. But his knowledge was there, so you know, I had to sort of give and take a little bit. But he was a different person when he started conversing with me when Vito was in the room. When Vito wasn't in the room, he was a totally different man. On my last visit in the oncology ward, he shared that I'd been a good girl, and he patted me on the head. Now, I walked out of that oncology, yes, Deborah, I walked out of that oncology room just gobsmacked. I had no idea where he went, but he was well and truly onto his next patients. He left me with not a very good feeling, and that was when I made the decision, I'm never coming back. He did say to me at that point in time, oh, that's what they all say. I said, just watch me. My decision was final on that day that I wasn't going to be back. Now, radiation was a totally different new world. I wish somebody had explained to me what radiation was going to do to the body. It was totally left field. I had to get 4 spots, i.e. tattooed onto my body, so that the radiation would fit within the square that it covers where the mastectomy had taken place. And the experience of radiation just, kind of took me by gasp, because I didn't know exactly what radiation was going to do. And when I understood that the radiation ray doesn't just touch the skin and bounce away, the radiation goes right through the whole of the body, well, I started having different feelings about radiation. The bonus of radiation was that the proactiveness of me and having the conversations with the nutritionist, he gave me a product that was a natural-based plant product that I would rub this cream over my breast area before I went in for the radiation. Now, the hospital had already given me this product that had sodium lauryl sulfate in it, which I just wasn't putting on my body because of being an industrial cleaner. It's only a small portion, but over a period of time builds up on the body. And I chose to use the nutritionalist's product. And by the end of the 6th week, early into the 7th week of radiation, I'm lying on the cold stainless steel bed waiting for it to all start, and I get these group of people coming around me because I was to find out my skin should have well and truly burst. My skin should have well and truly broken by the 6th week based on the amount of radiation that I was having. And they couldn't believe how strong it still was. So I got through the last week, the 7th week, with the impact starting to open, and then of course I had 7 more weeks of it to heal. And that was a whole new experience, because where the radiation went right up in under the armpit. So it wasn't as if it was just the front of the breast, it went right through to the side of the armpit. So what did this journey teach me? Did it teach me anything at all? I believe I found the resilience to fight back from my inner strength. I didn't know I had an inner strength. I didn't know what my inner strength was. But the thing that was happening was all happening. There was a knowing inside of me that you'll get through. You'll be able to make this. You'll do this. You'll do something else. And listening to that was what I tuned right into to be able to take that next step. But I did it with anticipation of what was going to happen, not sure. I found that emotions held within do have an impact on the body. And being a victim of cancer, the free radicals do harms holding that emotional pain, because it's part of the process. It's a part where it gets into the body at the weakest point, and that's where it starts moving through. And that was my experience for understanding, and the work that I did around that to be able to cope with why this journey was what this journey was. The other thing that was very significant to me was the absolute identification of the 80-20 rule based on alkaline and acidic. Now, in my earlier years prior to being diagnosed with cancer, I had had quite a troubling time with the loss of losing my partner. And I did not eat healthy at that point in time. I was skipping meals. I was feeding and living on potato, which, you know, at that point in time was filling me, getting me through, bit of chicken. But that was basically all I lived on because of the stress of what I was going through at that point in time. I didn't cook. I didn't do anything. I was eating some junk foods, but at the same time, I now understand the repercussions of what that does. So I'm very, very aware. And as the book will also share, the 80-20 rule of keeping the body in the alkaline side and not the acidic side. And on the closing, I found a tenacity of knowing my inner being. Profound, deep, I get it. But until you go through an experience where you have to rely on your own inner knowing, intuition, just everything around how you're going to get through, I needed to be stronger than I ever had given it credit for. Enjoy the book and thank you.
Thank you, Janice, for sharing that story. And I guess it's about time that we actually tell everybody the title of the book. Janice, would you like to share that? Because I don't think we've mentioned it at one part anywhere.
Well, yeah, no, okay. Folks, hang on, I've got to get over this side. Unfortunately, I do not have a physical copy of the book at this point in time because it's in the process now of being proof printed for me. Once that's proofed, then we'll be able to have the physical copy. So whatever purchases go through, I'll be sending the copy to you. But the book is called Let Me Get This Off My Chest. I think it's perfectly named, titled, Coping with Breast Cancer Alone. And, you know, it's a journey on its own, and I'm absolutely tickle pink with the title. Love it.
Absolutely. I thought we better share that right about now. People might want to know what the book was called, because now I'm going to ask you and urge you to purchase your copy. There is a special price at the moment. It's $20 at the moment, and that'll be available from now until midnight. And I've just put the link for that in the chat there. You can copy that link. It's in there. It's basically, if you go to janicemuir.com/books, that will take you straight to her book page, and it is the first book available there. And I said until midnight tonight, it's going to be $20. And on top of that, the postage will be paid, so it will not cost you anything to receive the book, and Janice will be personally signing them. So now would be the time, now or before midnight tonight, to grab your copy of this book, because what Janice has shared is only a little bit. It's just the tip of the iceberg of what is in this book. And it is a raw story. I warn you, it is a raw story. She opens her heart and she shares it completely with you. And for those of us who may or may not have, for those of us who have been through breast cancer, we will absolutely resonate. And for those who haven't, they're going to be resonating with the courage that comes out of this book. I know, because I have 4 little tattoos as well. I love that, because I can always tell people I have a tattoo now.
Yes.
They're tattoos. As far as I'm concerned, if I've gone through that, I want these tattoos. So I share that. So get that copy and pass it around. Is anybody in your community that would like to get a special? She'll allow that. As long as they order before midnight tonight, they too will get it at $20 and the postage paid and signed by Janice. The link is there, in there.
Can I just add, Trish, the digital format is also in there, but that won't be signed. But yeah, accessible though.
So you'll be able to order the printed copy, which will be sent to you postage free and signed, but there's also the digital. There's a button there to order the digital copy for for especially maybe Darlene, who might want to just get the digital copy straight away, because Darlene is from England, and really appreciate her being here. It's only about, well, it's about 3:30 a.m, maybe getting close to 4 a.m. over there now. So it's really awesome that she lasted out this length of time. Look, this brings us to the end of the formal part of the book launch. I'd love to thank you all for coming. And I really appreciate on behalf of Janice, all the speakers who have shared little bits of insight into them. Now is the time to open this up. We're going to unmute yourselves. You can pop questions in there. I don't think there was any all the way through, just lots of congratulations and acknowledgement. But if you'd like to unmute yourself now, a bit time to ask Janice anything that you would like to know or to have a conversation. We've got that time. We've got about 30 minutes before we will be completely winding it up. You don't have to stay the 30 minutes, but if you want to have conversation and discussion, now is the time to do it. So unmute yourselves and ask any questions of Janice.
Oh, that's a thumbs up.
Kathleen's got a question there. Go, Kathleen.
Go for it, Kathleen.
Congratulations, first up, Janice. I'm just curious about your choosing radiation rather than chemo, or did you go through chemo but you didn't? What happened there?
I had 2 lots. I had 8 treatments of chemo over a 6-month period, and approximately 3 weeks later, I had 7 weeks of radiation for 49 straight days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm.
I just wondered at what point did you stop having chemo and then opted for the radiation?
No, I chose to keep it going. They gave me an option of it being a little bit longer. But to me, I had also made a decision that Lisa and I were going to be celebrating Christmas together. And I went to the radiologist and I said, how fast can we get this done? He said, it depends on your body. And I said, well, what do I need to do? And I think he actually did some research, and he found out that I'd been quite positive in the results. So he said, well, we can start it tomorrow. So I then counted up all of the days, and I think I got a week, fortnight, maybe maximum before I had to be in Darwin. And again, to see my daughter, but I was also seeing Lisa because we were going to have a little bit of a celebration. And yeah, so it was 6 months of chemo after the operation, which was back in the 8th of May. So it gave about 6 weeks there for the healing to go through, and then boomfo, it started for 6 months, and then the 7 weeks straight of radiation.
Wow. Thanks, Janice. You're probably one of the most strongest people I know. So keep up the good work, girl. Good on you.
Thanks.
Absolute pleasure knowing you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Anybody else that has a question or comment or would like to share?
Question?
I think that sometimes people are under pressure as to what to choose when they are confronted with their breast or any cancer diagnosis. You know, my twin sister had always said, you know, because we'll write into you know, nutritional stuff and things like that, and that if anything happened to her, that she ever got sick, that she would never ever ever have chemotherapy, ever. But she did, because you get put in that position of, okay, is this the only way I might survive?
Mm.
Sadly, she didn't. And sorry.
It's okay. No, it's okay. I know Deborah's story, so I walk with her occasionally. So yes, Deborah lost her twin sister to cancer. It's been a big role for Deb. And meeting me, we've talked a little bit about it, and meeting me has brought up a little bit of emotion because I got through it and her sister didn't. Blessings to Deborah.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there anybody else who would like to have a comment, conversation, discussion, question? Or share anything?
I wouldn't mind just making a comment. I know, Janice, I've just been watching you for a long time, and you know that, and I'm just so proud of just in the last 12 months or so, particularly just how much you now, you've gone through the journey and now you're just glowing with the opportunity to be able to share that experience with other people. So congratulations.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you.
You look amazing, Janice.
Yeah.
Oh,
You look great.
well, there's a little bit more work to do, but that's okay. 10 kilos gone, another 10 to go.
You've done very well. Very well. I do
Thank you.
apologise for that. That's 9 years since my twin sister passed away next Wednesday, which was the week before our 54th birthday. So it's, yeah, June's always a tough month for me.
Yeah. I shared a little bit with them, Deborah, so you're covered.
Appreciate that.
Yep. Got your back, darling.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we can close. Janice, do you want to say a few more words before we close? If no one else has a question or to share anything?
Look, I think it's a situation that don't put off going to the doctor for that breast examination. I've met so many, oh, I must get around to do, oh, I will go and do that. Oh, I said, make the bloody appointment now. Because just so that you have an appreciation, the way in which I found out that I was in the throes for breast cancer was I was moving house. I moved my bed and I had an incredible excruciating pain run down from my shoulder down out through my nipple. And I couldn't work out what the hell was that. Oh, Christ, I've strained myself, you know, but I hadn't strained my back. It was all in my front area here. And I went to the doctor and she'd never come across a breast cancer patient, I found out later. And she said, oh, perhaps it's mastitis. And I said, mastitis, my daughter's probably in her 30s. Gee, no, I don't think it'll be mastitis. So the process started. But the moment the process started at the actual Mater Hospital, boom, 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 it never stopped. It never stopped. And you've got to, how do I put this? It's not that you've got to allow yourself, but it's being able to allow yourself. It's a process of 5 years. It's not just the visit to the doctors for the period of time because of the checking up, the follow-up. And it's at the 5 year. I sat in a chemo chair. I must have been, I don't know, halfway through and just got chatting to the lady next door. Now, take into consideration the power of the mind. Because her words were, oh, I'm here again because 5 years, as they said, how long I'd be free of cancer. I'm 5 years tomorrow. She was back on another bout of cancer. And that's always played in my mind, never, never, never. Cancel, 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 get it out of my head. But, you know, it all has impact. So for me, it was a very impressionable time, but then I was open to hear and take that little bit of information on board to do the next thing for myself.
And like with Deidre, her cancer was neither estrogen or progesterone dominant, so there was no hormone treatment for her. Right? She had a similar experience. She actually had a car breakdown and helped push her car off the road with some other friends, and she ended up with that pain in her breast as well. But her going to the doctor didn't give her, straight away, didn't give her any other chances. It had already been there. She had Deidre and I both have dense breast tissue. So nothing showed up in a mammogram the year before. And her tumour was right through into the pectoral muscle. They never got a clear margin right at the beginning. So,
that's,
so it's just the way it is for some people,
There's no two women alike that go through the process because we've all got that slightly different structure.
Yeah, that's right.
If I use myself as an example against when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was 13 months and 11 days after me. And when the time came that you go through the process and then you have to go in and get the assessment for what they call is the sac of lymph glands under the arm. Now, who would have thought that every single woman has a total different number of lymph glands in that one, what they call the sac. I was fortunate that I only have 9 lymph glands that filter my whole body down through the arms. If I use my mother as an example, my understanding is that she had 23 lymph glands in that sac, of which 17 were infected by the time that she was diagnosed. I've heard of other women that have gone through and had 3 lymph glands and had no infection.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter on your size, it doesn't matter on anything. It's just how your body structure is made to be able to identify that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would just like to urge that it is a very good idea to go to regular breast screening, because that's the only way that picked up mine, because mine were not, you couldn't see them. I had no symptoms. I didn't get anything like that. And it was only pure chance in my breast screening that mine got picked up, which is serendipity. Otherwise, I could have been a lot worse. So it is a good urge what Janice is saying. Do go and get screened. Do go and do regular checkups, because it's worth it.
What a lot of women don't know, and this is not, you know, it's not something I voice all the time, but in October of 2005, I was diagnosed with pre-cervical cancer. And I had no idea, you know, what was going on, but I came back with a test that was ugly. And my thumb, the size of my cervix now is only the size of a thumbnail. I share that only because I've seen inside myself with the doctors, because they showed me the camera to show me where that they took the stuff from the cervix from. Yes, I believe that there was a lot of hormone relatively around that area, to then be 6 months later diagnosed with 3 lumps in the breast. So, you know, it's quite an experience when you start sort of putting everything together. So I hadn't done the breast assessment. So, you know, I was by chance, because of the exercise that I did that caused it. So I just strongly recommend it. The other thing being, if I could just share openly with us all here, is absolutely know what your breast feels like. The lumps, the bumps, the highs, the crevices, the sinews, everything.
Yeah.
Because that's your other indicator. If you know what a pea feels like when it's frozen, that's what the lump can feel like on the inside. So, you know, it's that awareness. If we don't know, how can we do anything about it in our bodies?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, Janine had to go, and Suzanne had to go as well.
That's okay.
They put in the chat there the things. If they're a reminder, people, don't forget to go and click on that link. You've got until midnight to purchase that book at that price, postage free, and signed by Janice. And I think you need to get it, because there's a lot more in that book. A lot more. Okay, Janice, if you have got anything else to say, we might pull that to the end. No more questions or last comments for her? Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. It's really honoured that you took the time out on your Saturday. Connie, you have something?
I just wanted to say I love Janice. I've always loved Janice, that's all.
Yes.
I've known Janice for 4 years, and I've seen her blossom a lot in that 4 years. So that's all. Sorry for interrupting.
No.
To share whatever. And that, yeah, she's blossomed. Seen her 7 years ago when I met her. She would not have been able to sit here and do that presentation. She would not have been able to open her mouth and share what was inside, not as well. She would have got through it, but it wouldn't have been the Janice you see today. The Janice I saw when she did her first presentation for me was, she got the words out, but she just wasn't living in her body at that time. It wasn't natural.
Don't go there, Trish.
No, she owns who she is now, and you get what you get. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
So,
thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody being here.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll end the book launch now, and appreciate it. And don't forget to buy that book and share it out to everybody.
Everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Mary, may I say to you, thank you for the push.
Awesome. Okay.
Welcome. It's exciting for you. Really happy for you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Much appreciated. Bless everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Close it down.
So, Bev, that's Bev.
That's Bev.
Bev, I haven't met you before.
Unmute yourself, Bev. Unmute, Bev.
Okay.
Hi, Bev. How are you?
I'm well. How are
Now I
you?
know what you look like.
It's nice to put a face to your name as well, because I've heard so much about you.
And likewise, it is good. Nice to
God,
see
I hope
you.
it's all good.
Oh,
Think what you might have said.
No, it's just really nice to see you.
Yeah, and you too, Lisa. Yes, yeah, and it was nice of what you said about her. So I'm sure she.
Oh well, she paid me enough money.
That was my next question. What did she pay you? Money talks, doesn't it?
Lisa and I will have a drink someday soon.
We will. We will.
Oh, well, good on you. No, nice to meet you, Lisa, and all the best.
You too. See you later.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Bev. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And thanks, Lisa. Thank you so much for your words. Really, really
All good.
appreciate it.
All good.
God bless you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, lovely. I have to... Fingers from Lisa.
I got to press leave. Hang on. I got to press leave.
And Bev,
You got to press leave. Yep.
leave meeting. Got it, Bev?
Yeah, I got it now.
Bye.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye for now.
All right,
Bye.
bye for now. Bye. I'm still there.
No.
It's the leave meeting.
I'll leave meeting. Okay, going now.
Okay, sweetie. How did that go for you?
Oh, my Lord.
Well, we finished about 15 minutes, but that was okay because it allowed plenty of time.
Look, I'm considering it's virtual, considering it's, what's the word? You know, you're sort of thrown into the technology and you're not sure how
It's hard for people to mingle and talk in a real life, face-to-face book launch. It goes a bit longer because people get to talk and they have little clumps and that. So in a virtual one, you can't really talk to each other as much.
No. And I get that. So, you know, I'm grateful for what they did and shared, and, you know, yeah, Connie was late arriving, but then she was in South Australia, so we could have got her times mixed up, but she was very busy.
Yeah.
And Darlene got pushed off, so she came back in, but I couldn't work out how to get her back in again. So I'll send her the recording, which I can stop now.
She came back in. I admitted something she was just...
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I couldn't see her